Test 1, 2. Calling the Acre meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. Roll call.
Okay. This meeting is being held virtually and in person, so I would do a roll call of all the trustees to confirm attendance. Ms. Fessler?
Present.
Mr. Kehoe?
Present.
Ms. Langton?
Here.
Okay. Mr. Martin? Ms. Martin?
Here.
Ms. Mee?
Here.
Ms. Ginsburg? Here. Mr. Fay? Trustees, please use the raise your hand Zoom option to be placed in the queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute their mics until you're ready to speak. And now we may proceed with the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So, Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, procedure for teleconference. We do not have anybody teleconferencing today. Approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to move? Okay.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Langton, second by Mr. Kehoe.
May I make a comment or ask a question? In the non-consent, the Roman 6, all of them are worded the same way, and it says approved, blah, 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 the following engagement. It seems to me it should say the referenced engagement. When you look at just the minutes, there is nothing following. So I know, I'm sure that's like boilerplate language, but I suggest that somebody look at it again. It's in the minutes itself, and
Okay.
they all say the following engagement, blah, 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 blah. And I think that language was lifted directly out of the agenda. But when you see the minutes, the engagement isn't following there. And so it's a little threw me off. I kept looking for what the following engagement was, and there was nothing following. So it's not a big deal, but I just thought I'd mention it. Maybe somebody can review it between now and the next meeting.
Yeah. Thank you, Trustee Fessler. I'm going to turn that over to staff.
Yeah.
Take a look at. You will. Okay, go ahead.
Roll call. Ms. Fessler?
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe?
Aye.
Ms. Langton?
Aye.
Ms. Mee?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Yes.
Chair Martin?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Now we're going to go to executive session. So let's clear the room and we'll start.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were gonna make comments. Put us back in session. I apologize. Yes, good morning. Today we are here with the recommendation that the Acre Committee approve a salary placement for the Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer. And it is to start at a base salary of $17,625 per month, or the equivalent of step 16 of the Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer's salary range. Now, this is an atypical ask. The Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer position has lots of reporting authority. One of them is directly to the Acre, to the boards, to the CEO. And therefore, while the CEO has appointing authority over the CISO position, the Acre Committee and the boards exercise approval authority over the CEO's hiring decision and provide governance oversight for the ethics and compliance program. In addition, step placement above a certain point has to be approved by the boards, right? So we're bringing this request to the Acre Committee and both BOR and BOI for approval because it is above certain steps. So it is step 18. I'm sorry, step 16. The CISO position is currently fully budgeted in our 2026-2027 budget. So it is fully funded, and a placement at this step does not incur any additional cost to our overall budget.
I'll second it.
Okay, so prior to taking final action, the legislative body shall orally report a summary of a recommendation for final action on the salaries, salary schedules, and compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits of a local agency executive as defined in subdivision D of section 3511.1 during an open meeting in which the final action is to be taken. This paragraph shall not affect the public's right under the California Public Records Act to inspect or copy records created or received in the process of developing the recommendation. And stating for the record, the committee is voting on the step placement at step 16 for Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer, which is $17,625 per month.
Mr. Kehoe made the motion, Ms. Fessler, second. Ms. Fessler?
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe?
Aye.
Ms. Langton? Aye. Ms. Mee?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Yes.
Chair Martin?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving to 6B, non-consent, internal audit fiscal year ending 2026-2027 proposed audit plan. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Ms. Collins.
Okay, get situated. Okay, good morning, Chair Martin and also trustees. So one of the key roles of the committee is approval of the fiscal year audit plan. The audit plan outlines how internal audit resources will be allocated to the various projects and audits throughout the year. Now, as your chief audit executive, my role is to provide you with that plan. And then based on standards, that plan should be risk-based and also should align with organizational objectives. So with my presentation today, I'm going to walk you through the process in developing the audit plan. And I'll also highlight some of the key points of the fiscal year 2027 proposed audit plan. So let's start with slide 3, please, Gabe. Okay, when looking at the audit plan cycle, there's 5 phases. It starts with gathering the information. This is to define the audit universe. Those are all of the processes and functions that we could possibly audit. And we came up with about 130 of these different processes. Next is to do a risk analysis. This is a way to risk assess all of these processes in order to identify those of highest priority and the greatest risk. Next phase is the audit development. So as I am looking at the results of the risk assessment, I'm then identifying those processes and procedures that we should include in our fiscal year audit plan. Next phase is the ACRE approval, which brings us to the agenda item today. And then lastly is the execution of the audit plan. So the expectation is that as we are proceeding through the fiscal year and we're completing our audits, that we will bring the results of those audits to the committee, as well as the progress that we're making on the audit plan. And if there are any significant changes that are needed for the audit plan, I will bring those to the committee as well for their approval. And then lastly is that as we are proceeding and we're doing these audits, we go back and we update our risk assessment based on those audit results. So we have a very dynamic risk assessment. Okay. Moving on to slide 4. So one of the most critical factors that drives audit plan is the risk assessment. As I mentioned, when we updated our audit universe, we came up with 130 processes. So the question is, how did I decide which ones to include in the audit plan? The answer is a risk assessment. That's one of the factors, one of the inputs. So we took all of those processes and then we risk-based them. So using 5 risk factors: organizational financial impact, member impact, operational complexity, compliance, and reputational risks, we ranked each of those processes and we scored them. That brought us to our inherent risk score. So when you think about inherent risk score, that is the level of risk that exists before considering controls. So that's the first step. Second step was then to look at all of these processes, look at the inherent risk score, and then look at what are the controls that are in place that may mitigate some of these risks and drive that score down. So we went from the inherent risk score, we looked at the mitigating controls, and there were 10 factors that we used when we looked at the controls. These are controls such as if there are policies and procedures that exist, if there is good segregation of duties within the process, if there are different levels of review as well. So those are the factors that we use in order to identify, we call like a control score. So we go from inherent risk minus the controls, because those are the mitigating controls, we get to our preliminary residual risk score. And that's what's used in order to rank all of these processes. Now, included in your materials, attachment C is a full listing of the risk assessment. It includes all of those 127 processes and their scores as well. And then you'll note, when looking through there, you'll see a column that identifies if that process made it into the proposed fiscal year 2027 audit plan. Okay, next slide. So like I mentioned in the beginning, the audit plan should be risk-based, but also should align with organizational objectives. That brings me to this slide. Now, for many of you who were on our committee in 2025, you may recall that we brought our first internal audit strategic plan, a 3-year roadmap. And that identifies all of those strategic initiatives within internal audit. And it also aligns with LACERA strategic initiatives. So when looking at the slide, you see the top part, LACERA strategic pillars. Those are the 5 pillars. In the middle are internal audit strategic pillars that align with LACERA's overall pillars as well. We have 3: trusted advisor, continuous learner, and risk consultant. Towards the bottom includes those areas, the milestones and the tasks that we will perform during fiscal year 2027 to move our 3-year roadmap forward. So under trusted advisor, some of the things that we'll be doing is completing or updating, more like refining our advisory framework. That's one area that we're going to be doing more of. So we're going to be refining our framework, our workflow process, as well as our reporting structure. For continuous learners, this is our continuous professional development. We typically do about 40 hours of CPE every year. This year, it'll be heavily focused on AI training as it relates to auditing. And then lastly is to have some additional KPIs. These are benchmarks so that we can report to the ACRE committee how we're proceeding, how we're doing with our CPE and other factors as well. So that's under continuous learners. And under risk consultant, one of the biggest projects there is to conduct organizational-wide risk training. So overall, you'll see a component within the fiscal year 2027 audit plan that includes these different initiatives. Next slide. Okay, so the plan doesn't only look backward, but also forward and specifically at emerging risks. For many of you, you may recall seeing some of these on that ACRE survey that was sent out, and I greatly appreciate for all the responses. So for each of those emerging risks, I also have the type of engagements or projects that internal audit would do relating to those emerging risks. So for example, the IT AI governance, which is, one of those top emerging risks, we do have an AI governance review included on the fiscal year audit plan. Business continuity, disaster recovery, another one of those top emerging risks. Within the fiscal year 2027 audit plan, you'll see a disaster recovery advisory review. So that's the way that I'm able to align what we're doing in internal audit with emerging risks. Next slide. There are 4 different categories as far as the different types of engagements and projects that we do. The first is assurance engagements. These are straightforward. They're the bulk of the work that we do. That's where we're providing independent assessment to management and the ACRE Committee on Governance, Risk Management, and Control Processes at LACERA. Advisory engagement is where we're more so advising consulting management without assuming management responsibilities, so we keep our independence. We have continuous auditing program, CAP testing, and you're going to notice there is a bit more CAP testing included within this audit plan. CAP testing, great way to think about it is like it's a quick hit. It's very limited scope. We use a lot of data analytics and system queries in order to do this type of testing. It provides us a means to have more coverage throughout the organization without a lot of internal audit resources that are needed to do these. And then lastly is oversight, because internal audit does oversee various projects and engagements, such as LACERA's financial statement audit, which is conducted by external auditors. Next slide. And now we move to the fun part. Let's move on to how the results of the risk assessment led to the development of the audit plan. Again, attachment C includes a full listing of the risk assessment. The breakdown as far as the results can be seen in this chart off to the left. Majority of the processes, 127 processes, fell within that medium range, sort of like medium high. Now we had 17 or 13% that ranked in the higher risk level. And then the low was about, it was 40 low risk areas, okay? Off to the right, top right, you'll see how those high risk areas are divided between the different divisions. You'll note the 2 tallest pillars, disability retirement and member services. And what I found when doing the risk assessment is that there are a lot of these high and medium risk areas within our benefit side of the house. Disability retirement does have 4. However, you're not going to see those 4 within the fiscal year 2027 audit plan. That is because we already did an audit of disability retirement in 2023. And there's also some additional system upgrades and process changes that they're undergoing, which is going to make those processes more efficient. And so we will be auditing them in a future audit plan. Also, member services has 4. And let me just say, even though it says high risk, it doesn't mean that it means there's problems. It just means that there's more risk, there's more impact if anything were to go wrong. So with member services, also one of the tallest pillars there. And you'll see that within this fiscal year audit plan, there are several audits relating to member services. Interesting point is that looking back at the previous audit plans that we've had very few, if any, relating to member services. And since that's our benefit side, along with benefits division, it is an area where there is higher risk because It's part of our business, providing the member benefits. So you will note that there are several areas within in our audit plan regarding member services. Okay. And then lower right side is a comparison. This is where I'm comparing the universe to what's actually pulled out of our audit universe and included in the fiscal year 2027 audit plan. So as I stated, there were 17 high risk areas. Of those, 12 are included in the fiscal year 2027 audit plan. 70 of the medium, that's the bulk of all of the processes in our audit universe, and there's 12 medium level risk processes included. And then there's just one of the low. And the actual one relates to the credit card review. In the past, we've done the CEO credit card review on an annual basis. We are still continuing to do that, but it's going to be a cap test for fiscal year 2027. We also are doing a review of credit cards that the management staff does have as well. We do that on about a 3-year basis. And so it's time to do that area as well. So it's low risk, but it is an area that is included in the fiscal year 27 audit plan.
We have a question from Trustee Fessler.
Thanks. With respect to your reference about member services and the lack of audits in the past, what led to that? Were these areas not identified as high risk before, or how did that come about?
It was before me, so I'm not quite sure as far as the reasoning behind it. It may have been during that time period, we were more focused on the operational side of the organization. But moving forward, I'm looking at more of the benefits side of the organization. Yeah.
Member services not operational?
It's under benefits. It's
Well,
under,
no, I understand, but I
Okay.
mean, it
yeah.
has to be
Yeah.
operated in order to provide the
yeah.
benefits. So,
I'm talking about when you look at the org chart and we have the
Oh, I
operational
see.
side and the benefits side.
okay,
Yeah.
but and so when was the last time there were internal audits of the processes and member benefits?
So fiscal year 26, there is one. You'll see that it's a member appointment system. That's it's a split. So fiscal year 26 has the first phase of it. Fiscal year 27 has the second phase of it. Looking back further, I couldn't find that many, to be honest, looking back at the previous history of risk assessments.
Okay, and I know, I mean, Leisha, you were here
Mhm.
in the past and in a different capacity, but
Mhm.
did the process that resulted in what you're doing right now, was the process different in the past?
It was different. And
Okay.
so this year I took a bit of a different approach and I refined what was done in the past. And what was one of the major differences was that I assigned an auditor to each of the 7 divisions. I only have 7 auditors to work with. And so they each were assigned a specific division and they were charged with becoming like the expert within that division. And part of that exercise was them understanding all of the processes within that division. We had meetings with management to discuss the processes. The auditors then did additional work and meetings in order to get a really good understanding of the business operations within each of their divisions. And then that led to a more defined risk assessment and audit universe, because I was able to pull all of those actual processes and functions, include them in the audit universe. The next step was to do the risk assessment.
Okay.
So the risk assessment also refined. So we had 5 major risk factors that we use for each of these processes in order to rate them. And also the review of the controls as well, very specific. And one thing that I'd like to note is that the risk assessment is repeatable. So it is consistent as far as the rating, and we'll be able to do this year over year
Got it.
in order to then compare.
Okay, and that was another one of my questions. Appreciate it. Sounds like you did a much more robust approach to coming up with these recommendations this year. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Oh,
next slide.
Okay,
Oh, was there another question?
there's a
Oh,
few
okay.
questions. I don't know who's first. Langton? They don't go in order on my screen.
I liked it.
Where? Oh, got it.
Good morning. Thank
I'm
you.
seeing 1, 2, 3. Go ahead.
Just looking at this chart, we see that a few divisions have only one high-risk process, which is kind of difficult to believe or understand. But of course, I'm not in it with you, so I don't know. But for investments, I think that's the hardest one to
Okay.
believe.
Let me explain investments. Investments, there's one area included on a fiscal year on 2027 audit plan, and it's basically a risk assessment, because that is one area, there's a lot of complexity to it. So we will be working with an outside consultant on conducting our own internal risk assessment that will identify the different areas and functions that we should focus on when it comes to auditing investments. So that's why there's only one in there. And also, like I said, I was working with 7 auditors, and investments just wasn't one where I applied an auditor, because we were going to be having this additional engagement. Similar to what we did for systems. Last year, we had the IT risk assessment, and I identified those key areas that we need to focus in on going forward. So it's going to be similar to that.
Other question. On slide, I think it was slide 5. Could we just go back for 1 sec? Is this new?
The strategic initiatives?
Yes.
No.
I mean, the way you've laid it out.
No,
Pillars.
in 2025, we presented, it was the first year actually that we had an internal audit strategic plan. And so we presented that to the LACERA committee. It did include these 3 pillars: continuous learner, trusted advisor, and risk consultant. And then during fiscal year 26, we had specific types of milestones that we completed. When Nate discusses our annual performance report, included in there are the different tasks and what we did in order to during fiscal year 26.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm actually happy to hear a few things in the discussion here. First up, I'm glad that we are looking into member service, regardless of the past, right? So that's what I think, like the point again, perspective. So we got a fresh new look at it, and then we'll look at new areas and found out this area that we need to work on. And that's consistent with the feedback that we receive from members. I'm out there talking to members. Yes, there's some that really very happy with the service. Some of them also question individual one-on-one appointment, they got different answers. So the quality assurance in that member service is really important, right? Ensuring the quality is there. Also, the training is consistent with all the staff that provide the service. So I think it's an important area that we look into and make sure our members receive the service that they need to make prudent decision on their retirement plan. So it's important. So thank you for looking into that. Start working on that area. And the other thing about investment risk, I'm so glad to hear you engage in outside consultant with the expertise in the area. So we do need that here and there, in a certain area, to tap into resource from outside to make sure we diligently look into it. So thank you for doing that too. That's all common have. Okay.
Yeah, and one other point regarding the investment is that we're leveraging off of the other engagement we did earlier, which was the readiness assessment, our financial reporting, in which Tina, one of our auditors, worked with the auditors and a lot of the walkthroughs and understanding different processes. And part of that included investments. And so we're going to leverage off of that as well, where Tina will be looking first at investments and the risk assessment there. And then we'll be be branching off into working with a consultant too.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
But first is to understand for us. Yeah.
Comments and a couple questions. I think you've really ratcheted this up from in a short period of time. I really like the risk assessment that you've done. It's excellent, just as everybody else has indicated, and reaching out to the right consultants to bring in, because investments is very difficult and complicated. My question is, how much are you going to have your auditors involved with that consultant? Is there a way for them to learn something?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things that we try to do when we're working with external auditors is that sharing of information so that we're increasing our understanding
Right.
of the operations too.
Okay, that's excellent. Secondly, member services, the audits that, or the risk areas that you're talking about. I'm curious to know how much or if you get involved in any efficiencies in your audits, automation,
Yes.
because I tend to see, some manual processes there when I've been working with them. And I'm wondering how that fits in with your risk assessment and your audits.
It does definitely fit in with the risk assessment and the audits. Within the database of our risk assessment, we did identify within each process if there was automation, if there was some system enhancements that were occurring. And that way I'm trying to get an inventory of all the processes where that is occurring, because that will then reflect the way that we audit those particular functions. For member services, as I mentioned, we do have the member appointment system, and part of that review is looking at the efficiencies as well as the systems that is being used too.
Excellent, because I did a lot of audits and I was talking to Bobby and Luis about it. It's like the county, I don't know if LACERA does this, but like every time something happens to operation, they add another step, and pretty soon there's steps to an operation. And when you go back in, you only need 3. And I don't know how many times I saw that. So I'm interested in that as well, because it's important to the organization. Well, you can waste all this time on these extra steps and you don't realize you're doing it. So that's very great. I think the cap, I have one question about the cap. From my experience, and this was a long time ago, we did caps mainly because we wanted to make sure that the client implemented the recommendation, right? Like they were supposed to separate duties. And so we'd go back and do a quick cap to see if they did that. Does that play into your cap at all? I'm not quite understanding your cap.
It's more transactional. For example, bonuses, which is, you'll see that on our fiscal year 27 audit plan. And we've also reviewed that in the past. What we'll do is we'll just look at the types of bonuses that are being issued. And then we're comparing it against like the documentation that it was approved. So they're very specific and limited in scope to target specific types of transactions or specific types of controls also.
That's more risk.
Yes.
Okay. That's all the questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Also, I'm sorry, Ms. Martin. Also on that, I think the cap, I think you're referring to corrective action plans, right? To follow up on the corrective actions that were implemented.
Yeah.
And then there's also a cap that's called continuous auditing program.
That's where
right?
I'm missing it. Okay.
And so that's like your 960 validation that you do every year. And so I think when Alicia was talking about cap, she was referring to the continuous auditing process.
That's a new one. I've been thinking all along it was recommendation follow-up.
Oh,
yeah, but later in the agenda, then there is some items on recommendation follow-up in the agenda, and those are corrective action plans. So it can be confusing. Yeah. Same acronym.
Okay.
Thank you, Larry.
I just want to reemphasize again, even though we do have those areas, high-risk areas and member services, it doesn't reflect that there are issues or problems going on. It's just that there's more risk involved. And you'll also note that there are some middle high areas regarding member services that are not included on the audit plan, specifically relating to the call center. And that's because they're going through a transition also. And so it makes more sense for us to review that later than this fiscal year. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so here is an overview of our proposed fiscal year 2027 audit plan. And you'll find in attachment B, the proposed audit plan. And I'm just going to spend some time highlighting what is included. There are 25 projects and 11 of them relate to assurance. And then we have the cap, which we're just discussing, 4 advisory and 2 are just the oversight. to the bottom left, you'll see a breakout of those 25 projects by risk level. So half of them relate to those 12 high level risk processes. And then there's half within the medium, and then one is in the low, that 4%. To the top right, you'll see the coverage. This is how those 25 projects relate within each of the divisions. And then the lower right, this is a comparison. So looking at fiscal year 2026 to fiscal year 2027 and the differences. So about the same when it comes to assurance. CAP is a little bit higher. Advisory is just at 4 right now. And then oversight is 2. In a previous year, we had 1 value add. Now, what I also did was to do a reality check when it came to looking at the audit plan. What I found in the past, looking back at past materials, is that we would start at an audit plan, very ambitious, and then we would have a bunch of amendments that we would bring to the committee. Last year, we started out with 24, we brought it down to 27, and then there's still 2 that we didn't complete. So I did weigh that when I came to looking at what would be included in our fiscal year 27 audit plan. I also looked at the type of engagements, the timing that it would take in order to complete them, as well as the resources. And I just did this basically quarter by quarter to make sure that I had a more realistic audit plan. So we're about even with the ending result from fiscal year 2026, but just a few less. And also, and as I mentioned, there's a little bit more CAP, which are those targeted engagements that take a little bit less of our time. Next slide. And that brings me to our proposed fiscal year 2027 audit plan, attachment B. On the next couple of slides, the focus is on the first 6 months. Slide 10 lays out the 7 engagements we'll launch in the first quarter. I would say the theme during the first quarter is more benefit focused. We have the CAP testing relating to member payroll, death benefit payments, audit of the member direct deposit debit card processing, and retirement counseling. And there's also a mixture of financial accounting oversight, such as the oversight of the actuarial audit and the LACERA financial statement audit. Next slide. In quarter 2, I've added 6 more projects to audit plan. 3 high-risk areas, 2 medium, 1 low. These projects include the employer contribution reconciliation and the member hardship escalation process, both assurance engagements, and the virtual counseling, which is a CAP test specific to member data integrity and member services. There is also an advisory review that relates to disaster recovery, which you may recall was flagged as an emerging risk. And then 2 CAP tests are the member payroll special payments and corporate credit card transactions. Next slide.
I have a quick question. Explain to us why the credit cards are on there.
Why it's on there or why it's low?
Why you're doing a cap on the credit cards.
Okay, so
It's
CAP.
sort of my area of interest.
Yeah, so CAP, in the past, there's 2 parts to the testing. In the past, we've had a full assurance engagement when it came to the CEO credit card because there is no additional level of approval when it comes to CEO. So many years back, requirement became that internal audit will review the CEO credit card transactions on an annual basis. We've done that for several years. Last year was the first year we had intended to make it a cap, but we used it as a training audit for our new auditor. Went through the full process. There weren't any issues, so it is low. So this year we'll continue doing the review of the CEO credit cards, but it's going to be a cap testing, so pretty targeted. The other piece is throughout the organization, managers have credit cards as well. And so we usually do that audit on a 3-year basis. And I changed that into a cap testing as well. And so, and the great thing about the cap is that they're quick hits, but if we do identify any issues, then they get expanded into an actual audit.
They're not time consuming at all.
I'm sorry.
They're not time consuming at all, the
No,
caps.
we're talking a couple of weeks, depending on the complexity of what is being reviewed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then this last slide includes some of those non-audit areas that we do have to allow time for. This includes recommendation follow-up, because staff do track and monitor the status of outstanding recommendations and report that out to ACRE. We have our CPE, the 40 hours I mentioned. It's probably going to be a little bit higher this year because we are focused on some more trainings, emphasis on AI. And then we have an external quality assessment. Staff will need to dedicate time to support that process and addressing any of the opportunities for improvements that may come as a result of that assessment. And then lastly is the internal audit strategic initiatives, which I went through earlier, and we will be spending time in order to complete those. And this completes my overview of the audit plan. Questions?
Trustee Kehoe?
Thank you. Great job. Great job. I like this fresh approach to it. I've been off and on the audit committee since 2010, and significant improvements over that time period. So I definitely like the focus. I like the rating that you put and the scales to identify the more higher risk areas. I think that answers the question on why member services kind of floated up as an issue to focus on. So all those are really good. The one comment on the credit card side of the shop, I like doing it as a cap versus an every 3-year thing, because if you do it every 3 years, you're telling everybody, hey, every 3 years, make sure your stuff looks clean.
Get ready.
So with this, that brings us on their toes and making sure they're doing the right thing at all times. The one question that I had for you is regarding the AI. We're not going to get through a meeting without talking about AI, but I see that was a large focus point, and I also highlighted it as an issue in the audit survey you put out. But I'm curious what we're using as best practices, right? So it's new, it's emerging. There's all kinds of intricacies with it. We like to, including myself, say AI, but it's really very targeted things, right? So when we talk AI, that's like saying, I'm going to audit LACERA, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, now it's a part of everything that we do. So what specifically are we looking at? What are the best practices that we're using for that? That's my question. And then after that, Larry, I'm going to ask for your feedback and comments on the audit plan. So I'd like to hear from you on what you think. So.
Okay, when it comes to best practices and specifically AI, and as I mentioned, there is that AI governance review, and you may recall at previous board meetings, there's been a lot of discussion regarding LACERA's organizational governance of the AI framework that is in process of being finalized. Internal audit's role will be reviewing, once that's all settled and formalized, reviewing, conducting an assessment of that framework. That's one piece. Now, as far as internal audit, there's two sides to it. One is learning and understanding what are the ways that we can use AI to make our auditing more efficient. What are the best practices? I can't answer that at this point. That's part of the training and just getting that understanding that we'll be going through during fiscal year 27. The flip side is how we're going to audit those areas that include AI too. Again, this is something that we're going to be learning to get a good understanding so that we have the best approach as far as auditing when it comes to those systems that include AI.
Perfect. Okay, so we're identifying it as an emerging threat or
yes.
concern, and then we're identifying the best ways to train your folks on it, best practices, bring it in. So my only request would be that you include this committee as part of those broader discussions, right? So once you identify these high risk areas or concerns, data scrubbing issues, model training, all those type of things, you bring it to us so we can understand it as well. Because as part of the oversight, I think it's really important for all of us to have a deep understanding of it.
Definitely.
Yeah, through Chair Martin, appreciate the question, Trustee Kehoe. I think one of the things that we've realized with the ACRE committee and that we tend to have a gap on is those individuals that exclusively sit on the BOI and have a blind spot on what's going on in the BOR and some of the operational things that we're doing at the BOR. So I highly recommend, if you only sit on the BOI, read the Operations Oversight Committee meeting minutes, the reports. I think it's really value added as you sit in this seat and assess, to your point, what type of activities are we doing around AI and implementation.
And then Larry, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the overall plan.
Okay, thank you. First on with regards to AI, there are a couple of organizations that do put out some frameworks. One of them is called ISACA, which is your Information Systems Audit and Control Association. They have a framework around that. Also, the Institute of Internal Auditors does have a framework around AI governance that's used. That is a guide for auditing, the governance of AI. And so I think those will be very helpful frameworks for you going forward. And then also with regards to this audit plan, Alicia and I have actually had a couple of correspondences, and in this first of all, I think that the audit universe, the 130-ish items that they put together and went out into the organization was very inclusive of getting management involved in it, and management feedback and confirmation is a huge lift by the entire team, because they actually had to go out and conduct all these interviews and analyze the surveys and things like that. That is a great approach to this, and the framework with regards to the determining the inherent risk and the residual risk is a standardized, repeatable process that will also go a long ways towards implementing an enterprise risk management framework, right? It'll serve as a foundation for that. You're setting up kind of like, how do we organize it? And it standardizes and kind of harmonizes across the organization of, when we're talking about a high risk, we all understand what that really means, right? And so the plan here includes 12 out of the 17 high risk areas that were identified, which I thought it was great. The others that were not included, we had a discussion about. They were either audited in the last couple of years, right, or will be, such as the investment area. And so we had a little conversation about that. So I think she's including the right items that are included in the plan. I think that it focuses. In the past, to Ms. Vessler's, there was some focus on what's happening globally with organizations around the world, like such as what is important now, disaster recovery, right? And that's a good approach, but this really helps us focus on and target in on what are the risks related to LACERA. And it helps us to understand that. And hence now we're moving into such a global view where we can look at member services, which is unique to retirement organizations, right? And so it helps us really focus on what is important to LACERA. And I think that they've done a good job at demonstrating that and identifying the critical business processes across the organization. So I give it a thumbs up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Fessler.
Thank you. I just want to express my really deep appreciation for the work that you've done, but for how you've walked us through it. This is not my area of expertise or background or, life experience. And as I read it, I had a lot more questions than answers because I don't know the lingo and I don't know the standards, et cetera. And you've walked through it today in a way that really helped me not only understand what is here, but the why. Why is this here and this isn't, kind of thing. And so I really appreciate that. But as you've explained things, to second what Larry was saying, I don't know what happened in the past because I haven't been on this committee in the past and haven't been on the BOI or places where that kind of analysis happens. But this looks to me like the right way to go forward. And when I asked you how come it's being done like this and it wasn't before, you were very discreet and gracious in how you responded to that, but I'm very grateful that you've taken a fresh look. And even though you've been here historically, you obviously have some ideas about how this function should be conducted and where it could be tweaked to be even more beneficial to the organization and to the people that are trying to implement all these programs. So I just want to echo, I've got only 2 thumbs. If I had more, I'd give you even more than that. But thank you so much. It was excellent presentation, and I appreciate the thought that's gone into it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So thank you. Excellent work. You know that. And please let the team know from all of
yeah,
us.
definitely. This was a team effort. Definitely a team effort.
Okay. So do we have a motion to move approval?
A second.
For the motion was done by Ms. Ginsburg, second by Ms. Mee. Ms. Fessler,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Hi.
Ms. Langton, Ms. Mee,
Yes.
Ms. Ginsburg, and Chair Martin.
Aye.
This motion passes unanimously.
Okay. There's a presentation on this one, right?
No presentation.
No.
So,
So
Larry will need to excuse
yeah,
himself.
yeah. We're gonna move to 6C. So
This, the consultant.
the consultants, Larry. Bye, Larry. Thank you. And welcome, Christina.
Yeah. Hi, good morning. Just gonna wait. Okay, thanks. So good morning, Chair Martin and members of the committee. This item requests approval to extend the Acre Consultant agreement with Mr. Larry Jensen of Audit and Risk Management Services, LLC, for 2 additional 1-year periods and to authorize staff to execute the extension. So the current agreement runs through December 31st, 2026. So if approved, extension will continue Mr. Jensen's service through December 31st, 2028. Mr. Jensen has provided ongoing support to the committee through attending the ACRE meetings, independent advice on internal audit and governance matters, annual audit plan feedback, guidance on the global internal audit standards, and participation in the CAE recruitment process. Given his public pension experience, audit and risk management background, and continued support to the committee, staff recommends approval of the agreement extension. And to give you some background, our previous consultant had a tenure between 3 to 5. So Mr. Larry Jensen has only been here for 3 years. So we typically do offer the extension, given the continuity and just administrative logistic to sign a new contract, going out for RFP and getting a new consultant. Yeah.
Trustee Fessler.
Thank you. I have a question about the mechanics of this. Is it a contract that has a 1-year term? Oh, whoops, sorry, turned myself off. Is this a contract with just a 1-year term?
No,
or
it's
what?
a contract with 2 1-year. So technically you can extend 1 year until 2027, or you can just do the 2 additional 1 year on through 2028.
Okay, the initial contract was for 3 years?
Yes,
And it has the contract includes a provision that allows extensions
Yes.
of 1 year apiece?
that's correct.
Okay. And we're approving 2, we're authorizing staff to execute 1 now and then 1 next year. Is that how this works? I'm
It
just,
would be a 2 year through December 2028. But of course, the committee can choose to extend just 1 year. The thought was, like during COVID, it was hard to get a consultant for continuity reason. So, but at one point, the committee said, we're not just going to offer 2-year extension, maybe depending on the needs of the organization and just RFP processing. We're just going to offer, committee can choose 1 year or a 2-year, 2 1 year.
okay. I don't have any problem with it. It just seemed awkward
Yeah.
that, it would seem to me that we do an extension for the full 2 years rather than 2 extensions for a year apiece.
It would be 1 extension, but for 2 years. It's just that it gives LACERA the opportunity to pick 1 year, 2 year, or no extension. So that's the 3 options you have. Yeah, well, staff is recommending doing the 2-year because
Yeah.
yes, you're correct. It is kind of awkward. It's only for in case we're not happy with the consultant. This applies to all auditor external vendors. So it's not just for Acre Consultant.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, I have no problem with the 2 years. That sounds sensible to me and again, limited exposure, but he seems to add a lot to the operation. But I just, this is an area that I have some background in, and it just is an awkward way of processing an extension to a contract to, if the contract says we have the right to extend it for 1 year, and we have the opportunity to do that twice. I defer to our counsel, but I don't know how you do both of those at one time if that's not the way the contract reads. So I approve giving this committee authorizing staff to take action to keep the contract in effect through December of 2028. Mechanically, I'll leave it up to you guys to figure out how to do that so that it's actually consistent with what the contract mechanics or provisions require.
The reasoning behind it was that when we were developing the contract, the Acre Committee, that was the Audit Committee, wanted to have that flexibility for the future Acre Committee to decide if they felt that they wanted to leave the consultant or additional 1 year,
Right.
or if they wanted to do 2 years. So that was part of the reason why it was included
Right.
as such to 1 year.
And I get it, and that giving that flexibility makes sense. I just would, and I don't know what the language says, but in the future, I'm sure our legal counsel will make sure that the paragraph is written in a way to make sure that those options are all available, as opposed to doing some kind of hinky thing that it sounds like we're embarking on here. So thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. I just want to make comment on Mr. Jensen's service that I have seen in the past few years. In my view, I feel like his service as a consultant is a model. As a consultant, and hopefully it's a model for other consultants to look at. What I see is that he is the advice and support to our staff, provides us a resource to all of you. And then he's also advisor, support to the board for oversight. So he asks questions, and make us think, right? So those are really important. And he's always maintained the independency, the objective view. That's most important, I think, in audit. I think he provides all that. I hope all other consultants to the board, look at this model, think about, service like that way. So I like it. I really appreciate service. I think it's great. Support this continued contract. However, also on a note that, again, audit is about perspective, fresh look, fresh eyes, right? At some point, we're going to look into, a contract and maybe other service just in comparison as a reference if we need to renew a contract. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Ditto for me. I think he's excellent, and his background fits LACERA perfectly, and he's always available night and day. We know that, no matter what questions we ask. So you're right. I think he's a model, and I would like us to move forward. So do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Ms. Ginsburg made the motion. Ms. Fessler second. Ms. Fessler?
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe?
Aye.
Ms. Langton?
Aye.
Ms. Mee?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg? Yes. Chair Martin?
Yes.
And the motion passes unanimously.
And will you let Larry know he can come back in? Thanks.
Good morning.
Sorry, I think my voice is loud enough. So it's a recommendation for appointment of external quality assessment vendor, and welcome to the dais.
Thank you. Should I wait for Mr. Jensen or just?
Here he comes.
All right, we're gonna go. Well, good morning, Chair Martin and trustees. Today I'm presenting Internal Audits Division's recommendation to appoint an external quality assessment vendor for LACERA's internal audit division. We are seeking approval for IIA Quality Services LLC as our vendor for the external quality assessment and for authorizing staff to finalize contract negotiations and proceed with the engagement. This presentation will briefly cover the external quality assessment, otherwise known as an EQA, the requirements, the scope, the procurement process, evaluation results, and rationale for the recommendation. Next slide, please. The EQA will assess conformance with standards and identify opportunities to improve internal audit's effectiveness, efficiency, and value to LACERA. The scope includes governance, independence, methodology, quality assurance, and standards alignment. Deliverables will include a project plan, preliminary observations, a final written report with a conformance conclusion, and recommendations with the presentation to the ACRE committee. Staff recommends IIA Quality Services because of its direct affiliation with the Institute of Internal Auditors, EQA specialization, and methodology aligned with the 2025 Global Internal Audit Standards. Next slide, please. The Global Internal Audit Standards do require an EQA at least once every 5 years. Staff is moving forward now because leadership changes has created a timely opportunity for independent validation and improvement recommendations. If approved, contract negotiations will commence and we will expect assessment work to begin around September 1st, and the final report is expected to be presented at the November 18th ACRE committee. Next slide, please. IIA Quality Services will conduct an independent EQA covering governance, independence, stakeholder expectations, audit methodology, QAIP, selected work papers, and reporting. This includes the internal audit charter, interviewing key stakeholders and internal audit staff, and assessing how internal audit supports LACERA's governance, combined assurance, and enterprise risk processes. The review will also consider risk assessment, audit universe development, engagement planning, IT coverage, policies, procedures, and selected reports. The assessment will comment on staff qualifications, training, certifications, tools, and processes. Next slide, please. The EQA will also provide a rating on conformance with the 2025 Global Internal Audit Standards, including the ethics and professionalism requirement in Domain 2. IIA Quality Services will benchmark internal audit against leading practices and identify opportunities to improve efficiency, effectiveness, and value. Stakeholder surveys and interviews will help evaluate whether internal audit is responsive, useful, and aligned with organizational priorities. Expected deliverables will be the project plan, periodic updates, preliminary observations, a final report, and a presentation to ACRE. Next slide, please. LACERA did issue a competitive RFP and received 9 submitted proposals. The evaluation team, which included Trustee Langton, Mr. Larry Jensen, the ACRE committee consultant, and Jessica Baxter, the chief administrative officer, as well as myself as the project manager. The proposals were evaluated using weighted criteria covering RFP adherence, vendor background, team qualifications, methodology, their work plan, fees, and contract terms. The top 3 scores belong to Baker Tilly, Plant Moran, and the IIA Quality Services with the top overall score. IIA Quality Services received the highest score and offered the strongest combination of standards expertise, EQA specific experience, methodology, engagement leadership, and value. We want to note that IIA Quality Services also performed LACERA's prior EQA back in 2022. Next slide, please. Staff recommends IIA Quality Services for 4 primary reasons. First, it has direct authority and specialized expertise as a wholly owned subsidiary of the Institute of Internal Auditors focused on quality assessments. Secondly, it has a strong EQA methodology covering standards conformance, governance, audit methodology, stakeholder input, and maturity evaluation. Third, it offers experienced engagement leadership. This includes a lead advisor with CIA certification and prior chief audit executive experience. Lastly, it provides a benchmarking and improvement focus through survey history, a principles effectiveness framework, and benchmarking tools. IIA Quality Services also performed LACERA's 2022 EQA and provided relevant familiarity with our internal audit division and basis for assessing progress since the prior review. IA Quality Services proposed a competitive fee of $31,000 with travel costs billed separately. This engagement will be performed virtually, so the only travel will be for the ACRE presentation. Next slide, please. Following a competitive procurement process, staff submits IA Quality Services LLC for approval as the consultant to perform LACERA's EQA. The evaluation team concluded that IA Quality Services provided the best overall combination of qualifications, standards authority, methodology, experience, and value. Staff requested action is for the ACRE Committee to approve the appointment and compensation of the IA Quality Services LLC and authorize staff to finalize contract negotiations and proceed with the external quality assessment engagement. I would like to thank the evaluation team for assisting with this evaluation to make sure we get the best value for our money. I will now stand for any questions.
Trustee Kehoe?
Thank you. So first, very happy to see that we had 9 respondents, and I hope that we have reached out to all of them and thanked them for their submission, because I know it takes a lot of work for companies to do that, and showing that we have 9 shows that we're still attractive out there for folks. It's not that it's the same people applying, even though in this case it's being provided to them once again. Larry, my question is, I'm hearing that they're coming out only for the presentation. Is there any concerns about them not actually physically coming out here for the audit itself, or at least doing a one-time walkthrough? I know they're familiar with our organization, but what are best practices on that? I always get, we're a remote world nowadays, but I'm always worried that when we're auditing things, sometimes it's better get our hands on rather than be it remote.
So it is standard practice to do it primarily remote, right? And I think that kind of changed, with pandemic era, and so now with the tools, they can pretty much do everything. It requires a lot of more effort with the internal team in order to provide all of the right documentation timely and to get the information to them. The way that the standards are set up, though, requires documentation. And so they can look at that and do their evaluation, whether it conforms with the IIA standards or not. Like, for example, they'll send a copy of our audit plan, for example, and they'll determine whether that conforms with the standards. And so it's a really kind of an audit of the documentation to make sure that the requirements are there and are met. And so that's not unusual. In the past, they never did require actually for them to come out and actually deliver the results to the committee. It was the chief audit executive that just said, here's our report, here's the results. Now the new requirements do require that the assessor present the results to the committee directly. And in fact, they'll send the report to the committee rather than to the chief auditor. And so I think that's an improvement. And in this case, I think that's, it reduces cost to the organization as well, and they can efficiently do the review remotely.
Thank you.
Trustee Me?
Thank you. First, when I look at the score, the difference is in the score, right? Not even 1 point. That is a 100-meter race, right? Running race in the second. So kudos to the evaluation team. I bet you guys put a lot of diligence into that evaluation. Question is that if I miss in the materials, did we interview? Because I'm thinking like I have been part of processing the evaluation. Like proposal can be perfect, response can be perfect, but interview, seeing in person can gather a lot more information. So likely you already done it. Just want to confirm, did we interview? How many we interview?
So the vendors that submitted proposals, we did not directly interview. The vendors. Was not part of the scoring procedures. We simply went over the proposal that they submitted. We did review some background based on their websites, but we did not directly interview. They did have a chance to submit questions, which we answered back to the vendors, but we did not request interviews for any of the vendors.
I do recommend, highly recommend in future process, do that interview, because that interview, just looking at the team, even their team interaction in front of you, you can make a lot of judgment, you can make much better decision, interacting with, like the vendor that we're hiring. So I recommend adding that step in the future.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, trustee Ginsburg.
Thank you. I just have one quick follow-up question to trustee Kehoe's question. So is the contract going to be written so that if we do want the firm to be available to be in person, in addition to the presentation of the report, that would be feasible?
Yes, that is feasible. If we decided to have them come on premises to review documentation, that is in the contract that we would have to just pay for travel for them.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I have a couple questions. How often do you do these?
The EQA, the standards require at least once every 5 years.
Wonderful.
The last one that we did was in 2022, so we're a little bit ahead schedule here. But technically we can do them as the committee pleases.
Yeah, it's a novel concept. Audit the auditor. Well, yeah. I think the auditor should be audited, and I think only mature organizations, I think, do this. In my prior life, this wasn't something that the county did. I sure hope they're doing it now, though, because it does make a difference. It's a fresh eyes. It's somebody independently looking at the auditor.
Right.
So congratulations. And I want to thank Larry, Aileen, and Jessica for spending the time, looking at all this and evaluating it. But thank you. Excellent job.
Can I move approval?
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Fessler made the motion, Mr. Kehoe second, Ms. Fessler,
Yes.
and Mr. Kehoe.
Aye.
And Langton,
Aye.
Ms. Mee,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg,
Yes.
Chair Martin.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, quick question. Do you want a short break, board? Okay, 5-minute break and we'll come back. Thank you.
Is it common that we don't do interview? It's crazy to me that we don't do
I
interview.
never did. The reason for this, because it's a pretty standardized process. And it's
Well, wait, we can wait for. Just missing trustee Kehoe, so maybe we'll hold on a minute.
It's good.
Recording in progress.
I should just leave it on, but then I might say something. So welcome back. We're on section 7. Item A, Ethics and Compliance Program Foundational Work Plan Status Reports. And you have the floor, Allison.
Why, thank you. Good morning, Chair Martin and trustees. If all goes according to plan, this is my last foundational work plan status report as we change over to the next phase of program implementation and welcome LACERA's first CECO. Like the last reports, I'll provide updates on the 6 foundational program elements, spending the most time on ethics and compliance risk, previewing work to come, and also the recruitment and onboarding of the CECO. Next slide, please, Gabe. Education and training. This element is critical for communicating ethics and compliance throughout the organization, providing both education on the subject matter and embedding ethics, compliance, and risk awareness and risk management into LACERA's culture. The Ethics and Compliance Committee, the ECC, continues to be a central driver on the education front. The ECC, as you recall, is comprised of a cross-section of LACERA leadership from each division and all 3 lines of the IIA 3 lines model. ECC members continue to get certified through the Society of Corporate Compliance and Ethics Professionals. We attend conferences, we report out on lessons learned, and facilitate the message of the quarter on issues such as risk awareness, the interplay of ethics versus compliance, and code of conduct socialization. Essentially, what ECC members learn flows through to their respective divisions. And the ECC will continue to serve as an advisory body and also as an ethics and compliance advocate for the incoming CECO. Next slide, please. LACERA's policies are standards of conduct as well as controls to reduce or prevent misconduct, which requires the risk owners, and that's management, to regularly evaluate their policy inventory for effectiveness. The Ethics and Compliance Policy Subcommittee meets every 2 weeks when divisional subject matter experts submit new or updated policies and procedures for vetting before review by the full ECC for discussion and approval. Foundational ethics and compliance program documents that are currently ripe for review and awaiting the CECO's expertise and ownership include the Policy on Policies, Procedures, and Charters, the Ethics and Compliance Committee Charter, and the Ethics and Compliance Program Charter. Additionally, to strengthen controls, risk mitigation, and reporting channels, it's recommended that the CECO lead development of fundamental ethics and compliance policies, such as a standalone non-retaliation policy, reporting procedures, and investigation policies and procedures. Next slide. The ethics and compliance risk assessment is a primary tool for every ethics and compliance program to not only determine our ethics and compliance risk landscape, but also to build or strengthen the other elements of the program, such as our culture, our investigation process, policy management, education, and training. It's not a coincidence that an organization's risk assessment process is where the DOJ begins in the event of an enforcement action to determine whether a program is well designed. Specifically, the DOJ considers how an organization identifies its risk profile, the controls in place to mitigate that risk, and the degree to which the program devotes its resources to do so. In a mature program, the infrastructure is generally established prior to conducting a comprehensive risk assessment because it requires the dedicated resources, meaning the personnel, to develop the response plans and remediate the risk identified. While awaiting the incoming CECO, our foundational work plan included a baseline risk assessment. primarily to identify those risks and to provide that foundational information for the CECO to ultimately recommend a remediation plan. In May, the Ethics and Compliance team completed a foundational risk assessment report identifying 5 primary ethics and compliance risks from the 2025 assessment we conducted alongside internal audit. And those risks include culture, people management, vendor management, policy management, and insufficient training. The report, which included proposed follow-up, was provided to the executive office and will be included in the CECO's onboarding package to analyze and determine next steps. Next slide, please. In the interim, I wanted to provide a preview of what an ethics and compliance risk assessment process will likely look like once the program is established by our CECO and who will be leading it. An effective ethics and compliance risk assessment in a mature program generally follows a 5-step continuous cycle: identify, prioritize, inventory, remediate, report, rinse, and repeat. Identify the risk universe, prioritize and rank the risk by likelihood of occurrence and severity of impact. Inventory compliance controls, beginning with the highest or mission critical risks. Remediate with action plans alongside the risk owners, again, management. Report findings and mitigation strategies to senior staff, ACRE, and the boards. These 5 steps comprise an ongoing cycle requiring dedicated personnel and resources as the risk landscape evolves, AI being a prime example, or when misconduct occurs. In 2025, the Ethics and Compliance team conducted step 1, risk identification, and we've again partnered with internal audit for the 2026 assessment now underway, and those findings will also be provided to the CECO along with our 2025 baseline risk assessment report. Next slide. Culture. An effective program promotes a culture where ethical judgment and a commitment to compliance with the law, regulations, policies, and procedures are baked into daily operations. Employees are more likely to be engaged and feel a responsibility to report misconduct in a culture that values integrity, accountability, transparency, and leaders who consistently model those values. As you're aware, culture is commonly cited as a top risk across all industries. Last year, we conducted a culture survey organized around LACERA's values, followed by focus groups. The focus groups were asked whether there were gaps between what we say our values are and how we practice living them. The answer from 75 employees at all levels of the organization was unequivocally yes, followed by a very thoughtful discussion and the identification of org-wide issues such as accountability and meaning inefficiency in terms of, inconsistency in terms of organizational justice, in terms of how people are treated depending on where they sit in the organization. Also value-driven leadership, otherwise known as tone at the top, people development, and execution. These findings were reported to the committee in November of 2025, I believe before all of you were on this board, and also again to the boards in April of this year. The executive office is committed to taking measurable action and will continue to evaluate LACERA's culture with regular surveys and focus groups to determine progress. And all of this information, the culture survey, the focus group feedback, that report will be provided to the CECO, who will incorporate that information into their culture, education, remediation, and any other relevant work plan. Next slide, please. The Code of Ethical Conduct. Here is a copy. We unfortunately have run out, but we will get you some by November. That's good news. This code is a foundational document for LACERA's ethics and compliance program. It expresses our commitment to ethical judgment and compliance with the law, regulations, policies, and procedures. And as you all know, after a rigorous redrafting and review, the code was approved in May of 26. This week is Code Rollout Week, with the team hosting in-person coffee discussions and online educational messages, facilitating staff engagement with the code, which is why we have run out. The lines were out the door. It might have been the donuts and the bagels. However, the codes were also taken. Code orientation for trustees and all staff will follow, along with quarterly education and annual training, and that will also be included in the CECO's education plan. Next slide, please. So a very brief overview of the recruitment journey, which we discussed earlier. Following an RFP in June, we engaged the firm Concilium to run a nationwide search for LACERA's first CECO. The same month, a resume canvas was posted in June. Initial interviews were conducted in July. Ad hoc committee and final selection interviews occurred the first week of August. And Lewis made the final selection of the CECO with recommendation to the ACRE committee today in executive session, to be followed by the boards in September. And as you know, our goal is to onboard the CECO at the November 2nd, 2026. That's the when she will be onboarded, they will be onboarded, and we'll introduce them to the ACRE committee at the November meeting. The ethics and compliance team will now shift its focus from foundational work to the establishment of the formal ethics and compliance office, to be led by our CECO. Next slide. So in the interim, we are curating a CECO onboarding package to introduce LACERA, the program, and propose a first-year roadmap. We'll introduce LACERA with an overview of our mission, vision, values, fiduciary duty, governance structure, divisional operations, and current strategic plan. We will introduce the program with our governing documents, the charters, the program charter, the ACRE charter, the ECC charter, as well as, of course, our code of conduct. And then our foundational work, the 2025 baseline risk assessment report, the 2026 assessment findings, the culture assessment, and foundational work plan status reports from inception of the work plan in 2024 to present. In addition, the roadmap proposes that the CECO meet with key stakeholders to establish program authority, foster engagement, observe divisional culture and risks, and develop education, remediation, and any other work plan that's identified from the foundational activities, along with the outstanding ethics and compliance policies and procedures noted earlier. Next slide, please. The foundational work completed to date will provide the CECO with substantive data to continue to build and implement the program and measure its growth and effectiveness. In November, the CECO will assume program management, further infrastructure development, and begin reporting to the ACRE committee. The legal office will facilitate the onboarding process, continue its work in the ECC, and serve as compliance counsel to provide advisory support to the CECO as requested. With that, I thank you and stand for any questions.
Okay. Trustee Keough.
Thank you. Great presentation, and this is a great plan, but the plan has to be implemented by somebody, and we have to have a team that puts it together. So that actually goes out and does these things. So I know we're hiring our executive that's going to be managing that. What's the end result going to look like as far as the team itself? Are we going to continue to use the legal office to do a lot of these things, or are we building a stand-up team, and what are we kind of moving it in that direction? We can remind us all of that plan. I know we're going to have huge input from our new executive, but what are we looking at?
We have the class specifications approved for 2 deputies as well as an administrative assistant. And yes, the CECO absolutely needs all of those people to implement the plan, whether it's education plan, culture plan, remediation plan. As to the timing of that, we're going to give her some leeway to get comfortable, maybe 6 months, 3 months, depending on her feeling. We can step in the interim. That being said, it's not our program. It's completely separate from the legal office. We would be more in an advisory role.
Got it.
Consultant Jensen.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for all of the foundational work that you guys put together. This is really laying a great foundation for the new CECO to come in and start working on, and especially in the areas, developing the charter and policy management program and all of the great things that you've done. One of the beauties, though, and I think that address this is, compliance and risk management is everybody's responsibility. It's not legal officer responsibility, right? And so one of the great things I think they did in the foundational area here is to develop the Enterprise Compliance Committee, which consists of folks from across the org. How many?
35.
30, yeah. So across the organization, and that new CECO will be able to step in and lead that committee. And you've already got 35 people across the organization that are working to promote compliance and to help implement the program and provide feedback and take that message to their divisions, right? And so I think that was a brilliant move to implement that right away and get people involved and start the training and education with them. And they're already getting certified too. And so I think that was really key to this, and will be helpful going forward, addressing, you know, your concern too of, you know, because one person can't do it all. And so that was good. Thank you for all the great work.
Thank you. It was a team effort.
Trustee Fessler?
Thank you. This was very good, and you didn't do a very good job of disguising your enthusiasm for this being your last report to us, but I appreciate that. Two things. One is to follow up on what Larry just said. When we conducted the interviews, that I was on the subcommittee, I believe virtually every candidate, some to greater and some not quite as much, expressed their enthusiasm for this job coming here. And one of the reasons they were interested about this particular job at LACERA was because they saw all the work that had already been done. And to them, that gave off a vibe that the organization really valued this. This wasn't an afterthought, that it was something very intentional. And to those people, that meant a lot. They felt they were stepping into an organization where they were really going to be valued and have the opportunity to create a good impact. So that I agree with everything he said, but we had an independent enthusiastic response as well to the fact that we had done so much legwork and a lot of the foundational stuff and the effort to communicate to the organization as a whole the value of this. And so kudos to you guys for what you've done, but also for the image that all that work, good image it created for our organization. I just have one question. I probably should have asked it months ago. How were the people on the committee selected?
The ECC or the ad hoc committee?
Well,
Ethics and Compliance Committee, meaning within our organization.
Yes.
30. So we have a representative from every division. And then there are some, I don't want to say second in commands, but other people who are interested in ethics and compliance from other divisions. Legal has a bit more because we have our employment council represented. And then people volunteered.
Okay,
and we were trying to be as inclusive as possible.
So you just opened it up, or did you go to the managers of each of those things and say, hey, we need somebody from each division, so pony somebody up, or what?
We started with the managers, and actually it preceded the ECC was originally just the policy committee, but I'm trying to remember, that was about 2022, and then that morphed as we decided we were going to do a full-blown formal enterprise ethics and compliance program. We morphed the policy committee into the ECC committee. And I believe Lewis at the time went to each manager. That's how I recall. I was actually in a different division at the time and became a member of the policy committee. And then that grew. And we wanted to make sure that every division was represented and particular units within divisions, depending on whether there were risks that were ethics and compliance specific.
Okay.
Yeah, just to supplement, it basically grew organically. Initially, it was the managers, but then we really opened it up. So if there's an interest, even till this day, if there's an interest, we certainly encourage individuals to attend.
Yeah, well, and in this area, that's really the probably the most compelling qualification is somebody who's actually interested in this area, because it demonstrates what their own internal core values are if they're willing to participate in something like this. Okay, great. And I, again, that's just another compliment or another area to compliment that we went to such efforts. You guys went to such efforts to bring together a group of people who were enthusiastic about the topic and anxious to help get it off the ground. So good work.
Well, thank you. And it really is a labor of love, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm just putting on a different hat.
Okay, Trustee Langdon.
Thank you. I join what everybody else said, and I just wanted to thank legal for taking the helm on this. It's a lot of work on top of your already a lot of work. So you did a great job. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
And thank you, Mr. Rice.
I just want to.
And Mr. Rice.
Yes,
Definitely.
I just want to sum it up. And this is golden. I'm not going to be as eloquent as some of these people here, but this is golden. Can you imagine walking into a job where they've set it all up for you? Hello, that's our dream, right? Awesome, awesome work, awesome work.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Nathan on his way up. Nathan. And there you are. Internal Audit Annual Performance Report. Hello, Nathan.
Good morning.
I like that name.
You can have it. Allison, such a hard act to follow, by the way. So well spoken, so well prepared. Almost, we're just as pretty as each other. Internal Audit Annual Performance Report. So this morning, everybody's talked about things moving forward, an ethics and compliance plan, an audit plan, contracts and engagements. Today, we're going to look backwards, specifically the last 12 months, and even more particularly, the completion of our audit plan. So next slide, please, Gabe. Today, we're going to talk about the internal audit team as it now stands. The 2026 year in review, which will cover our completion rate and some relative metrics towards the audit program. And lastly, some of the accomplishments we've succeeded with regards to our journey on our internal audit 3-year roadmap. Next slide, please, Gabe. So internal audit has 11 budgeted positions. Currently, we have 9 filled. We do have 2 vacant positions at the principal internal audit level. Now, we do have some interim plans for that, and Alicia will discuss that a little bit later. Currently, we have 8 audit professionals on staff and 1 senior admin, and we collectively hold 10 certifications. As you can see on the slide here, some people own multiple. Alex, who is new to the team, is working on his right now, and I'm working towards my CISA at this time. But this is the team, and I'm really proud of these folks. With the vacancies, everybody had to kind of really put their nose to the grindstone and do a little bit extra to finish strong through the finish line. So guys, you should be proud of yourself. I'm proud to be a part of this team, and it's a great team. We help each other, we're willing to be helped, and I feel like we like each other. We enjoy spending time. So we do have a great team. Next slide, please. The year in review, what everybody's been waiting for. How did we do? Next slide, please, Gabe. 34 projects, 28.4 projects completed. That's a completion rate of 84%. I was very conservative in our number rounding too. I could have pushed it to 86, but after reading the ethics and compliance document, I thought, you know what? We'll keep it low. 3.6 projects in progress. You may be wondering, 0.4 projects, 0.6 projects, how did that get done? I'll touch on that in the next slide. So 3.6 projects in progress, and 2 postponed that will be addressed in this upcoming year. Next slide, please, Gabe. So talking about what we have done, 25 completed projects, fully completed. Now, we did have 3 projects that are in the final reporting stage. And for these 3 engagements, we gave ourselves 80% credit. Now, these are final reporting, which means the audit was performed. We had exit meetings with management. We've drafted a final report. We're refining the language, and we're working with management on their responses if they have any. So 3 projects at 80% is 2.4 projects. We also have 2 individual projects where we gave ourselves half credit. Now, in both projects, the magnitude and scope of the engagement were slightly larger than we had anticipated. So the time and the effort it took on the front end with regards to the planning, the research, the knowledge sharing, the risk assessment. It was equivalent to almost a full engagement. So we went ahead and we gave ourselves half credit and we finished the planning phase. Now, phase 2 will take place in 2027, and they are part of the audit plan. And we do, pardon me, and in the information only section, you do have 2 memos that discuss those particular projects. Next slide, please. So this slide is very busy, I must say. So let me try to walk you through it a little bit. We have really 4 types of engagements that we provide: assurance, advisory, oversight, and value add. And then we have a handful of little projects that don't really apply to those. Those are the others. Those are specifically things that are organization-wide, where internal audit is kind of performing not an administrative duty, but it's not necessarily our work, but it's for the sake of the divisions. So that being the risk assessment and our recommendation follow-up. So that's the bulk of the others. But as you can see, a majority of our time, being 44% and 30%, combined 74, was in those advisory and insurance areas. Now, as we move top to bottom, starting at admin services, this shows you how many projects we performed in that division and what type it was. So if you look at admin services, 1.5 projects, 100% of those projects were advisory. Does anybody have any questions on this slide? Anything I might be able to clear up for them?
Could you remind me if it was FASD again?
I'm sorry?
FASD.
Financial Accounting Services Division?
Okay, thanks.
So the intent of this slide really is just to show that we are providing, that we have a balanced allocation of resources across the organization while maintaining a strong emphasis on our core assurance and advisory responsibilities. Next slide, please. So this here is the listing of our most significant projects through the year. As you can see, a majority of them are green, which means they are fully complete. So I believe it is 13 out of 18 are fully complete. The 2 yellow arrows, those are the projects that we gave ourselves half credit. And the 2 orange arrows are those projects that we started in fiscal year 2026, and they're still in progress, and we'll be completing them in the near future. As you can see here, the disaster recovery is postponed and is on this 2027 audit plan. Next slide, please. So let's talk about what we didn't complete. As we do have, as I just recently mentioned, we do have 2 projects that are currently underway, and we're in the midst of the fieldwork at that time, that being the risk assessment follow-up, as well as the felony forfeiture. And we're looking to have those completed sometime in October of this calendar year. The postponed projects are the development of the ERM program, as well as the disaster recovery program. The disaster recovery program is on the upcoming audit plan, and the ERM program will be collaborating with the new CECO, because they'll have definitely a part to play in that. So 4 outstanding projects, 2 in field work, 2 postponed. Next slide, please. Continuous audit program, we touched on that a little bit before. On our current audit plan, that was just 1 line item, but that encompassed 5 different projects that we completed this year. As we talked about, the CAP testing is very focused. We're oftentimes looking at key specific controls, and a lot of times we're using queries to pull data from the system, and we're doing 100% transactional testing of that data. Generally speaking, we're looking at areas of compliance or possible fraud indicators. So this year we had 5 projects that were all completed. That included duplicate vendor payments, duplicate member payments, the LACERA rehired retirees, survivor testing, and State Street Bank wire transfer user access testing. Next slide, please. Internal audit roadmap. Alicia gave you a short presentation or a short part of it in her previous presentation, and I'm just gonna fill you in on some of the accomplishments we had for this current year. Next slide, please, Gabe. So this mimics Alicia's slide. As she said, we have 3 strategic pillars that we created to align with LACERA's strategic pillars: the trusted advisor, continuous learners, and risk consultant. Next slide, please. Trusted advisors. The key word here is trust. If we want people to be able to trust us so we can advise them, we feel that it's necessary to have our own house in order. So this year we completed 84% of our audit plan. We updated our internal audit operations guide. We created new audit work papers that'll help in the seamless process of the fieldwork. We also refined our recommendation follow-up reporting, and we did that leveraging technology and our audit software to really crank out the reports to where we just have to go in and make slight modifications. And lastly, which was a huge, oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't huge. Lastly is a formally established continuous auditing program. So instead of, not only do we have CAP audits on it, but we have some structure behind it. We have some intentions, we have some objectives, we have some documented items that really tell the story of how and why we're performing these engagements. Next slide, please. Continuous learners. As we all know, the business world, along with internal audit, is obviously always evolving. So, and we want to foster a culture of learning in internal audit. We don't want to stand still. We want to move with the company and be on the forefront of things whenever necessary. So last year, we developed an internal audit training plan that included group training as well as individual training that people selected on their own for areas that they were interested in or they wanted some additional expertise. As a result of that, everybody completed their 40 hours of individual training, which basically we all need for our certifications. We also had a quality insurance improvement program, and that's really, we're preparing for the EQA, which is the internal auditor coming in to look at us. This is us looking at ourselves. Are we following the standards? Are we efficient? Are we effective? What improvements can we make without being told to have to make them? So we take time throughout the year to look what we've done, what we could do, and what we should be doing to assess ourselves. So we had quarterly meetings on that. And then lastly, we're all certified and we're continuing to work towards additional certifications. Next slide, please. Last part, risk consultants. We want to be able to advise people on risks throughout the year and also educate them on it. So we had 2 educational sessions for this committee, one being some education on financial statement audits and how to read and interpret them. We also provided training for incoming ACRE committee members. We provided education and training to management. This year, we focused on some meetings, particularly around census and our actuarial audits, and FASD management was included in that, as well as other individuals. And we always have stakeholder surveys. At the end of each engagement, we send a survey out to whether it be the division managers or the additional partners involved to get an idea of how they felt about our performance on these projects and how we could better advise them. And lastly, as Alicia started off with, a formalized annual risk assessment process. This is the big one. Alicia worked really hard on laying a foundation and a structure that is objective, that is repeatable. She allowed everybody on the team to be involved. She gave us some responsibility and authority to look at particular divisions and bring back to her what we saw as the risks, the processes, the necessary controls. And it's a much more dynamic process than we may have had in the past. I'm really proud of the work she's done on it and the input that she's let us take part in. And moving forward, it is something that we'll only be able to build upon. So I'm really proud of having that be part of our plan this year and moving forward. So I believe that is the last slide, and I can take any questions you might have at this time.
Oops, there we go. This is wonderful. You know, 80% is what I always remember Richard saying, 80%.
I'm not even sure in my
But
17 years here, we've ever even had 80%.
Okay, well, that's excellent, even more excellent, but this is a lot more comprehensive for us to understand, so appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you.
No? All right. Thank you so much, guys. And 84%, it's all them. Definitely not me. I just get to report the numbers.
I'm going to invite Leisha back up for her internal audit staffing activity report.
Okay, so the committee may recall at previous meetings, I have mentioned the two vacant positions, our principal internal auditors. And I'm very pleased to announce our interim principal internal auditors. There have been two selected from our senior auditors. They include Christina Sun, we call her Tina, and also Delfino Aguilar. And Christina and Delfino have both demonstrated exceptional professionalism, technical expertise, and leadership within internal audit division. Their experience, commitment to audit quality, and understanding of LACERA's operations make them well prepared to take on the responsibilities of interim principal internal auditors. And overall, I am fully confident that they will be successful in these roles. So over the next 6 months, they will be taking over in the roles as interim principals. During that time period, most importantly, is managing, overseeing these audits. As I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of projects and audits that we're trying to accomplish. They will also be working on some special projects and implementing some of those strategic initiatives as well, and also assisting me in completing our audit plan and other projects that we need to do. So congratulations to both of them, and they started this week.
You want to go on to M, which is status of other external?
Yep. So there is one. Siegel is currently conducting RHC's, our Retirement Healthcare's annual claims audit on Anthem Blue Cross and Cigna dental vision plans for the period of July 1st, 2025 through 2026. That's a typical annual audit, and that is the only one.
Questions? Then thank you. Okay, Larry, any comments from you?
No, I think that was an excellent report. I had the pleasure of participating in the principal auditor interviews along with Leisha, and just how impressed I was with the whole team. It's, you know, all of them have great qualifications, bring a lot of skill and bring a lot of knowledge to the team, and together I think you have a strong team going forward. I guess, as we work into hiring the new principals in 6 months or so, we may see some adjustments to the audit plan as new people are on board, and so just be aware that as we transition there, you'll because right now your resources and the audit plan are really based upon what you currently have. So we'll look forward to that. And I think this has been a great report. Thank you for your efforts.
Yeah, thank you. At the November meeting, I will definitely be bringing updates on the progress we're making towards the audit plan, and also give you some additional insight into Q3, Q4 for fiscal year 27.
Okay, thank you all. We want to move on to items for staff review. I'd like to turn it over to Trustee Langton.
Thank you. At the last ACRE meeting, we had discussed the audit pool firms, and we had discussed that a few of them were being extended from 5 years to 7 years. And my understanding was that there was going to be a report back about whether we are updating their documentation so that it's not stale, because 5 years is a long time, 7 years is even longer. And I just wanted to see if we had an update on that.
Yeah, and Alex is going to provide a quick update on that.
Great, thank you. And while he makes his way up here, I just want to say how organized and easy Alex made it for us to participate in the ad hoc committee. Really appreciate your work.
Thank you. That was my pleasure. With regards to the audit pool, yes, we did at the last ACRE meeting. It was approved to extend two of the firms to a 2-year extension. So the previous was 5 years, now they are 7 years. This aligns up so that all of our audit pool now expires in 2028. During the extension period, we had the firms provide us with key information, including firm representatives, organization and key personnel changes, assigned professionals, DEI confirmation, potential conflicts, any legal situations that their firm is involved in, an updated fee schedule. Now, moving forward, when the audit firm is being selected, we are requesting this information again. However, every year, the certificates of insurance need to be updated. So as part of that process, we'll be asking again these same questions instead of having the same information for 5 years. Every year, we'll get updated information to make sure that we have the current status of the firm.
That's great. I know it's a lot more work, but especially with the insurance, that gives me a lot of comfort. So thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to items for future agendas. None at this time. Good of the order. Anybody want to chime in on good of the order besides that this was a wonderful meeting? Yeah.
Second that.
Second that. There you go. So we can adjourn at 11:17.